welcome to the BullCast podcast. It's an early morning one for us. We usually record more like midday, late afternoon, sometimes nights. We're a little groggy this morning, but let me redo that intro. I'm Katie Pickler, and I've got here Court Winsett.
I'm wide awake.
And Cameron Spann.
Good morning.
Okay, so y'all are just
Good morning.
No, I faked that
I
song.
think y'all are just making me sound like the groggy one over here.
No, I'm still kind of waking up.
Okay, so we just got fresh back from a retreat. We did a staff retreat, and if you haven't picked up on past couple of episodes, we've been talking about things that people value, and when they're looking at jobs and they're looking at, their time they're valuing, the benefits they're valuing. And so this episode's kind of going to be a little bit of funsy. Obviously, Cam's a better actor than me, but it's a little groggy morning. But we want to talk about culture and retreats and kind of different things that we experienced with our team, but other things that you can maybe take, whether it's your organization that you can bring to them if you're in the higher positions, or even if you're in a middle to lower position, that's something you can maybe present to your team of, hey, maybe this is something we should start doing.
Yeah, culture is one of those office buzzwords that can be kind of hard to pin down, right? It's kind of this intangible, magical thing. Everybody wants good culture, but what is it? Is it just kind of good vibes? So hopefully in this episode we can break it down.
Yeah.
At least for us, every office kind of has a different culture or what they want to achieve. So we can talk about Pickler Companies at least.
Yeah, but it's your internal culture, and then it's the external culture of like your clients, things like that. Because I even think there's I can't figure out which streaming show it's on, if it's on Apple or somewhere, where it's people are separating their personalities from like who they are at work versus who they are in their
Apple
personal.
TV.
Apple, okay, yeah.
Severance, which is coming back for season 2 very soon.
Yeah, so there's a lot of conversation out there right now about how we're different people at work than we are at home, which that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But it's kind of trying to figure out, like, what is your at work culture? What's your vibe?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got this list, and I already admitted to the guys that I only know one on this list, and 1.5 I'll throw out there. And this list is the top craziest office cultures from TV shows. Let's go ahead and get started. Court.
Okay. Number one on the list is The Office, Dunder Mifflin.
Mm-hmm.
That is a clear example. The Scranton branch of Dunder Mifflin is known for its absurd and often hilarious office antics. Thanks to Michael Scott, of course, his crazy, ridiculous, unorthodox management style. The Office, the American version, was based on a British version, which was also hilarious and had a different sort of awkwardness to it, but it's still sort of the same idea. You've got this kind of boss that just doesn't really understand how to boss, and
he doesn't understand social parameters.
Yeah. But
that's what she said.
It leads to amusing stuff. It honestly, early on in The Office, like when I was watching it early on, it made me super uncomfortable a lot of the time, and I just didn't like watching it because I don't like to watch things that make me uncomfortable. So, it took me a while to get used to the humor. And that aspect of it, and to kind of go like, oh, okay. Especially when you get to know Steve Carell as a person, like outside of the role that he was playing. Michael Scott, he was the boss. Steve Carell played Michael Scott. Like, he's such a super nice guy, and you realize like, oh, he's like really doing straight up a bit that is just, and I mean for like 8 seasons, he doesn't let it go. He's always just... It is hilarious.
Yep.
Anyway.
So I know a lot of people love this show. I still have not seen it. I've seen maybe like 1.5 episodes. And
what season? Did you start one?
It was the one that James Spader was on.
Oh, gross.
Oh, that's
why.
I mean, you haven't even seen The Office.
Yeah,
then.
The Office fell to pieces.
The Office was
once that
over
happened.
by then.
It was over.
You didn't see an Office episode. You saw a James... I'm sorry. You saw a James...
Pick a random episode in season 3 or 4. That is when it hit its absolute peak, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but I've heard a lot of people who really love this show talk about how they'll kind of like compare their office place to this show and be like, oh, you're acting like this character, you're acting like that character.
Well, The Office is kooky. That is for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
Okay, I'm going to take this one because I know this one.
You would. Okay, fine.
I mean, you can still talk about this because this is an epic show.
It's the most serious on the list.
Yeah, so here we go. I'm the most serious. Sterling Cooper from Mad Men. Oh, love this show so much. Set in the 1960s, advertising agency in a high-pressure environment filled with heavy drinking, chain smoking, and rampant office affairs.
So an HR nightmare.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But like you're in the 60s. It was totally different times. Cutthroat nature of the industry and the character's personal life created toxic but fascinating culture. I mean, this show, number one, this show is so great. I'm sure, Cam, you absolutely love this for just like the visionary of them taking these products. And I've always enjoyed this show of how they made sure to kind of give you perspective of what time period they were in because they highlight things like, you know, Kennedy in office and different like natural disasters or things like that were happening during this time period. So you kind of knew where you were and they were real products that you could relate to and know, oh, you know, that hairspray line, the pantyhose line, you know, this alcohol, this, you know, food product.
Coca-Cola.
Yeah, I don't
Coca-Cola.
remember what year does the original season start.
It's early 60s, right?
Early.
I mean, you're absolutely right. It gives I don't know if it's every season, but it feels like that there is a
tells you.
perpetual change in the way they dress, the way the way their office is decorated, the things that they're talking about.
Yeah.
Like every year, it gives you a different feel.
Yes. Okay. Google says season 1 takes place between March and November of 1960. So the beginning of that decade.
Very specific. Yeah.
And just even like Joan's character, Christina Hendricks, she being the female, like kind of the boss of the assistants per se, and how she rises up and her position really escalates.
Yeah, she kind of plays that office siren, if you will, that vixen. But I feel like John Hamm was born to play Don Draper.
Oh,
in my
yeah.
opinion.
He will forever be. He will forever be. That
It's very difficult to see him do anything else now because the role was so iconic. And quite honestly, you know, seeing him out in Mad Men, he was so. I mean, he was just Don Draper. He was just so, you know, everything else that he's done since then. He's a goof, you know.
Yeah.
Well, and Peggy. I mean, obviously that show launched her because she was in The Handmaid's Tale.
She's kind of mousy. Yeah.
Olsen.
Yeah.
Olsen's last name. Okay. Anyways, we're comparing two different cultures. So The Office is very, you know, kind of campy comedy, like randomness. A modern age.
Well,
and then you've got Mad Men that is much more like time period. Women were the secretaries. Men were, you know, in the higher positions. They all had little couches and stuff that they'd randomly be sleeping. The secretaries truly were like very hands-on with their bosses, getting their dry cleaning, handling different things, you know, doing a lot of that stuff that, you know, I don't even think they're called secretaries anymore. It's all like administrative assistants or, you know, receptionists, things like that. And so that was just a totally different culture that happened with that time period.
Yeah, and speaking of that culture, remember the episode where they had a party in the office and one coworker was on a riding lawnmower and ran over another coworker's foot and chopped his toe off? Do y'all remember that episode?
Oh, gosh, yeah. They had some wild parties.
Wild. All right, number 3 on the list is another, I would call it kind of mockumentary. It's handheld, very kooky. That would be The Bluth Company from Arrested Development. Have y'all seen Arrested Development?
Yeah.
Great show.
Yeah.
Love it.
No.
The Bluth family runs this real estate company with a blend of dysfunction and absurdity. Yeah, it is dysfunctional. Their office culture includes shady business deals, constant legal troubles, and a family that's more interested in personal gain than professional success.
Oh.
Yeah, so it surrounds this family. You've got the matriarch and the patriarch, and then their kids and spouses, all that.
Yeah. So the first 3 examples that we have of craziest office cultures, every single one of them has an element of, this is what not to do if you're running an office, right? For different reasons. You've got the boss that doesn't pick up on cues and that doesn't actually understand, you know, social awareness and so forth. In Mad Men, it starts off in an era of office life where, you know, there was absolutely no respect for a female worker at all.
Well, and they talk about kind of the hierarchy of trying to climb up because you've got the old guy that's like running everything. And then it's like Sterling Cooper trying to come up, Dawn trying to come up, and like everybody trying to, you know, finagle, and it's political of who gets what jobs.
Yeah. But mostly, all the good things, all the good jobs go to the guys. I mean,
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course.
and then, of course, the Bluth Company, you've got the patriarch was a criminal. The Bluth Company was all about shady dealings and so forth. And then the main character was really, in my opinion, Jason Bateman. And he's kind of the straight guy who's coming in and trying to right the ship, right? And he's fighting against all of the garbage that came before.
So much garbage.
Yeah.
Kind of like how Don Draper was in that serious show, Mad Men, and he tried to break out into comedies.
Yeah.
Jason was kind of in that comedic, crazy, even though he played the straight man, and now he's playing more serious roles, at least in Ozark, trying to break out of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because that's a whole other rabbit hole of like actors getting pigeonholed into like this character, Melissa McCarthy.
Oh, yeah.
So Silicon Valley is an interesting one. It's the next one on the list, and I got to tell you, I didn't like this show, and the main reason I didn't like it is because it seemed like they are your typical Silicon Valley business startup guys. They have this fantastic idea for something that is web-based, and they're starting up a company, trying to build a company around it, and every single episode, something goes wrong. Something bad happens.
Highly stressful.
They just cannot. They don't seem to be able to catch a break. They cannot get things going right. Some of the people in the TV show, some of the characters are just terrible people. Others are just like struggling to make good. It's got what it seems like is a good sort of broad cross section of some people that could actually be real people that you might actually go like, oh yeah, I know a guy like that. Some of them are just terrible, terrible human beings, though. Some of them, just whatever. But they cannot catch a break, and I could not watch the show because at the end of every episode, it was like, and they're gonna, they did it again. I mean, it's just terrible.
Kind of like how The Office made you really uncomfortable early on. This show made me really uncomfortable. I thought it was funny. It's highly crass, though. It is not like The Office, so we're not recommending this to children.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's an HBO show.
Okay. I have attempted to start watching this show.
Yeah.
The Parks and Recreation Department at Parks and Rec, while generally well-meaning, the Pawnee Parks and Rec Department is filled with quirky characters, ridiculous town hall meetings, and an endless stream of oddball projects, creating a unique and often hilarious workplace.
When Parks and Rec came out, I felt like it was just another The Office. It was just kind of a different spin on that same sort of documentary kind of office type workplace show. And so I never watched it. And just recently, several people told me that I really ought to watch it because they thought I would like it. And so I gave it a try recently and have actually I've really kind of enjoyed it. A lot of the actors that are in it, I'm very familiar with for projects that they went on to do after this.
There's a lot of big names in it.
Yeah.
That's where
This was a breeding ground for young comedians.
Yeah.
All right, and last on the list would be the longest-running animated television show of all time. That would be The Simpsons, and the workplace is the Springfield Nuclear Power Plant.
Yeah.
Now, can I make a confession? I bet you know what it is. I've never seen the show.
You've never seen even one episode of The Simpsons?
Yeah. It's always been in pop culture. I know of it. I know the theme song. I know the opening credits and all that. I just never have watched it, probably because when I was young, I wasn't allowed to watch it, and then I just didn't really have interest. But here we go. Let me read a little bit. The power plant, Springfield Nuclear Power Plant, run by the tyrannical Mr. Burns, is a dangerous and poorly managed workplace where safety regulations are ignored and Homer Simpson's incompetence as a safety inspector adds to the chaos. I cannot believe that dude is a safety guy.
I've always thought this show was kind of like a cartoon version of SNL because they always incorporate what else is going on in the world, pop culture related, and implanted into their show. Mm-hmm. They did one about Ozempic, and they do ones about different political people and different artists and stuff like that. I mean, am I an avid watcher? No, but my brother watched this, so I would watch it growing up. I dated guys that would watch it, so I've seen it off and on, and
highly influential.
It's iconic. Very influential.
Family Guy would not exist without The Simpsons. Mm-hmm. All those kind of almost adult cartoons.
Yeah. Kind of sad to put it this way, but a lot of people are probably finding out about big pop culture movements or political movements through The Simpsons. That's how they're getting their knowledge.
I'm sure y'all have seen this on social media, how these Simpsons, old episodes have, basically predicted the future. They had old episodes where, Donald Trump became president. And all this stuff, it's wild. They predict the future.
So The Simpsons are ruling the world.
They are, yes.
And it's had big voices and stuff on the show.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was our list talking about the craziest office cultures from TV shows. Of course, we didn't throw Succession on here, but that's kind of more like an office culture
That's more of a
/ family drama.
culture. Yeah. I mean,
But
I'm sure there are some other office
Some
shows.
offices are that way.
Honorable mention, just because we're younger, so we didn't necessarily bring up the office culture on a show like Mary Tyler Moore, or so some of those older shows.
Will and Grace, it's just Karen and Grace, and that culture is very toxic. Karen's like, honey, will you do that?
Yeah.
You're my assistant. You're supposed to be doing stuff, Karen. Yes, there's lots of great shows that have very different office dynamics.
Yeah. You can basically break down TV shows into different groups of types of shows. And office culture TV shows, I think, is very definitely a category because it's where a whole lot of us spend a whole lot of our lives. And so it makes sense that people are going to sort of see themselves in the shows that people put up there. And it's just an office. And it's like, okay, what's the interaction here?
And that's where like all the hospital shows that have come out over the years, ER, Grey's Anatomy. I've started watching it recently, a Michael J. Fox one where he's like, it's a political office.
Yeah, Spin City?
Spin City, yeah. Like, I mean, there's been so many TV shows over the years that really, because people are thriving to kind of watch these shows as entertainment purposes, but then kind of see their own environments within these pop culture shows.
And then one more office culture that I would be remiss if I didn't mention. Have y'all seen Veep?
Yeah.
Office culture in the White House, and it is wild.
Yeah, I have seen episodes. I haven't watched a good arc of any of the seasons. So, and again, it had a ton of people in it that I recognize now. But anyway.
A good office culture helps employee satisfaction and retention. I've heard Cam say this several times before that he spends more time up here than he does with his family. And so if you're doing that, you want to make sure you enjoy the place you're at.
Exactly. These people become your family whether you like it or not. And if you don't enjoy them or if you're miserable, what's the point? So make the most of it.
Yeah. Okay. Increase productivity. If you feel like you are in a supported environment, if you feel like you're in an appreciated environment, then it's going to stimulate you to keep doing more, to keep moving forward. And so that goes to that culture as well of making sure that, you're seen, you're being appreciated, and it's not that you're just working to work and it's not making a difference. Big or small, everybody wants to make a difference.
Yeah. If you feel empowered and autonomous, you're going to work better, right?
And I think with that, increased productivity, it's like, where can you grow? What are the different things? Are you valued? Okay, attracting talent.
I think we probably all are aware of the fact that there are companies out there that just get a reputation for being a good place to work, right? If you have a good culture in your company, then people are going to tend to talk about how much they love their job and how much they love to work at a certain place. And you'll get a reputation for being a great place to work.
Yeah, word spreads. At Pickler Companies, or Pickler Wealth Advisors specifically, we refer to kind of our clients who like to spread word about us. We call them raving fans. And your employees can also be raving fans. Word will spread if your company's good or bad.
Especially in this day and age, like word travels very fast. And so people are going to know. And then if you're in a customer service-based industry, your clients are going to be able to tell based on how your employees are acting and being treated. And it's just a ripple effect.
A little bit of behind the curtains. We are right now currently going through, as an office, we're going through a sort of self-reflection kind of exercise using the book called Unreasonable Hospitality by a guy by the name of Will Guidara. And a lot of what he talks about is he is a restaurateur. And so everything is through the lens of building this one particular restaurant that was a major success that he was the restaurant manager for. But a lot of the stuff that he talks about is the culture that he tried to infuse into this restaurant to make the people that were working there not just want to work there and to enjoy their jobs, but also to want to be excellent. You can't just go into a situation where you want to have an excellent office and demand excellence and expect that people are just going to fall in line. You're creating a complete culture that is going to hit all of the things that can make an office an excellent office, that you're striving for perfection, but the people that are working there actually want to strive for perfection. So it's an interesting read, and I think it kind of speaks to all of these points about what a good office culture can help you accomplish, because it's not just about, again, setting an expectation and then demanding that people meet it. It's about how do you get people where you want them to go.
Exactly.
Well, and it's also about continuing to evaluate, evolve, and check in on the culture. And this is more my world, but I have seen firsthand, and anybody who's been a part of Greek life has seen that sororities, for example, you can go to a school and, there's different sororities that end up being the top sororities. And it is not like Kappa Delta is the best sorority for all of time at Mississippi State. Like, that's not how it works, because as new girls come in, as new things happen, the culture shifts. And so you often will hear people talk about, well, last year were the top dogs and now they're the lowest because their culture shifted. People who got in there changed. They, maybe there was toxic environments, things like that happen. And so that's where people can very easily come in and shift an entire culture. And so it's important for you to nurture your culture, your business culture, your personal culture, whatever it is, and identify if there's snakes in the room.
Yeah.
If there's people that are causing the culture to be impacted, or if it's, there's people that are really coming in and trying to rise to the occasion to be a part of this, to really help build a culture if it has been beaten down. That's where it's just kind of having people on your business team that are aware and watching the culture. And so that's why we are right now going through this with our office, is because we've had a lot of change with adding new positions, even me coming on board. I've been here almost 6 years now, and just the cultural shift of it used to just be David as the end all be all advisor, and now me being an advisor as well. The culture has shifted from now people's languages are not, I'm David's assistant, I'm David and Katie's assistant. And so you've got to understand, as your company grows, your culture changes, and you got to take some time to mess with it.
Yeah. And on top of our company kind of growing via employees, we have a satellite office in Russellville, Arkansas. So that adds a different layer. We have people that we don't see very often, but we need to include them because we don't want them to feel left out. And Court, you had mentioned kind of this cultural reflection in the book that we're going through.
Right.
And that's why we had this retreat, right?
Yeah.
To include the Arkansas people, to include our remote workers. There's, 25 of us?
Well, not only that, but we actually operate. Pickler Wealth Advisors is the place where we all three work, as I tell everyone at the end of every episode. We have multiple companies. We have Pickler Wealth Advisors, we have an accounting firm, and we also have a law firm, and they're separate companies. And so we do have to try and build a culture where everybody is operating together as a team. And everybody feels supported. The big thing that I'm always worried about is I don't want one of the smaller companies that's only got a few staff members to feel like they're somehow a redheaded stepchild. I want them to feel as important and as included as anybody on any of our other teams. And so you do have to focus and make it a point to include those. And then also, when you're talking about culture, you talked about toxicity. You talked about the possibility that you might have a snake in the grass or something. That's a genuine risk that you run, not recognizing when a particular employee is creating a toxic environment because of their attitude, because of their unhappiness. You have to understand what your employees are going through. Is it something you can address? Is there something you can fix that will make it better? Are they going through a bad point in their life where they're just bringing in bad energy into the office? Or is it just that they are a toxic employee?
Because it spreads.
Yeah, it really will. It'll affect an entire building. I mean, you can have an entire building full of people who one person has basically made, the entire building feel like a sad, sad place to work.
And that's why the interview process is so important for any company. A little insider baseball here. Court and I, historically, over the years, have been the first line of defense in interviews, I'll call it. We're kind of the first phase.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times I will ask kooky, off-the-wall questions that the candidate doesn't expect. And it's not to make them feel embarrassed, but it's just to watch them think on their toes and also to see how they would potentially fit into the culture.
Yep.
Do they have a sense of humor? Can they think outside of the box? Can they get along with Court and I before we suggest they meet with David and the team? So for any company out there, the interviewing process is so important. Don't just ask the typical questions. Try to really gauge where they stand.
Yeah, you can't just judge off of a resume, because this person could on paper look like they're the best fit for you, but you also have to make sure they're not going to come in and be great in that role, but in turn destroy the rest of your employees.
Indeed. But Along those same lines, when my brother and I used to work together, he used to like to say, a great idea is a great idea, but a great manager is somebody who can recognize a great idea and actually nurture it and make sure that it is put into effect. So you might be a great idea person, but if you're not actually able to say like, oh, this is a good one here, we really need to get behind this and put it in place and make sure that it's part of the way that we operate, then it doesn't have that beneficial effect. Similarly to that idea is the idea that sometimes you have to be able as a company to identify staff members who have something to offer to you, but maybe they don't have something. Maybe they're just not in the right place. David's fond of saying, make sure that you've got the right people on the bus. Maybe you have to change their seat, but make sure that you've got the right people on the bus and then figure out where you're going to put them. Gadara has a very similar story that he talks about in his book, where he talks about finding a guy who was really, really struggling in a particular job that he was doing. He took that guy and shifted him to a different focus where that guy really excelled, and it just made all of the difference in the world. So, being able to identify good ideas, being able to identify an employee's talents. These are things that you have to pay attention to the people that you're working with in order to be able to identify who has what talents and where they'll fit properly. That's a tough thing to accomplish.
Yeah. If you are a business owner or high up in a company, you're sitting there going, okay, well, I'm trying to focus on what I got to get done, and now I've got to be closely watching my employees. It's a lot to juggle, but that's again where you empower your team. You have that where you have that understanding, and it could start to be your team then is coming to you, telling you about their hidden talents or telling you about the things that they feel like they're excelling in, but they're struggling in.
Or giving you their good ideas.
Yeah.
Hey, I've noticed that we do this way. We might perform better if we change the way that we're approaching this whatever it is.
And it's good to have checkpoints with people. Like we also just went through and did one-on-one meetings with a lot of our team members that we may talk to all the time in group settings, but not really a one-on-one. And it was, David and I did not have an agenda. We just walked in and said, this is your time. Talk to us about what's going well, what's struggling, how you feel things are going, and kind of what's your timetable? Like, how long do you want to be with us? What is your growth pattern? And so I can't speak for everybody, but I feel like most people felt heard and, that we at least are gathering information. Now, we're not going to be able to fix everybody's, women problem, because at the end of the day, it is work and there's going to be things that everyone has to do that they're not crazy about. But I think that if they feel like they've got people in their corner that are there to help, there to understand, because it's just like your support system with your partner that you're sharing your life with versus your partners that you're working with. You've got to feel like you have somebody who cares about you and is invested in your success. And it's just a ripple effect from that. If we take care of our people are going to take care of our clients are going to take care of us. Like it's a whole beautiful little circle thing going on here. Some of the other things that a good office culture helps is preventing burnout. Mm-hmm. That's a big issue, is because sometimes you have to identify those superstars that are trying to prove they can do it. And if you don't watch closely, you don't see that they keep accepting more and more work, but really they've got too much on their plate. They need help, or they sometimes may need help prioritizing. And so being aware of that. Innovation and creativity, we've kind of talked about that some of, the freedom of bringing those ideas, because any business person should know, like, you should at least listen to the ideas if there's better ways to do something, more efficient ways for us to do different projects or tasks. Organizational success and client satisfaction. I mean, it's all this ripple effect, but it's also, we kind of hear this sometimes and it sometimes gets a negative effect, but like you'll see, TV shows and movies, oh, you're just going to hire within. You're just going to move somebody up within. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times in TV shows and movies, that's portrayed as negative, but really like that's great for a company if they're able to keep somebody and move them up within the company, and then have another person come into their spot and empower them to then maybe move up to another position. And so, I mean, that's where, again, it's constantly having those conversations, because you may in your mind think, oh, Cam is so great at X, I think he could then one day be this, but really have a conversation and Cam may be burned out in that capacity and he wants to maybe move towards another direction. employers listening to this, stuff like that, I'm not telling you that you need to, be so in tune with your employees and all day, every day, think about every little whim and where somebody should go, but just make sure you've got that temperature check on, that you can know what's going on with your employees, what the culture is, and that you take on the responsibility to check in on the culture, check in on things, what's going on. And it's not just you on your own boat by yourself. It's having other team members that help talk to you about the culture, that you've got this very open environment.
It's cliche for a reason because it's got a definite hard kernel of core truth to it. And that is, give people the benefit of the doubt. You don't know what they're going through. That applies to not only your employees, but it also applies to your boss. It also applies to people who, your clients or customers. You may get a customer who calls you up and absolutely destroys you on the phone, and it might be out of character. And instead of getting angry and getting upset about it, you might need to consider what it is that they're going through at that point that makes them feel like they have to lash out at you. And is there a way that you can address their issues that will take care of them and maybe hopefully diffuse a situation that could otherwise turn into a bomb? Same thing with your coworkers. There are lots of books out there right now. It seems to be a very, very fond topic of a lot of people, books about how to work with people. Just tons of books about how to interact with, in a work environment, your coworkers, and how to not only get along, obviously on a basic level, that's very important, but also how to be productive, how to be part of a productive team. And so, clearly this is a topic that a lot of people are really super interested in right now, because then the publishers are only making books that people are buying, right? So obviously there are a lot of people out there that are looking for pointers. Well,
and if you looked at our group, we have a very eclectic group of the 25 between the wealth advising, the law firm, the accounting firm, and the Russellville office. And, we came up with this idea to do this staff retreat, and Cam and Nicole put a lot of work into the planning. My mom, who is not even an official staff employee, she was very actively involved with this, as well as David. And it was about, how do we merge all these people together? How do we get them to not talk business? And so it was over, let's say a day and a half, kind of is what it was. Some people were just there for the day. Some people were there earlier. And it was, the whole thing we kept saying is trying to break bread, like trying to get everyone just to kind of meet each other. I kind of watched, and I look back on this weekend, and I wasn't as much getting to know a lot of the other people, but I was sitting back observing. And I kind of regret that a little bit, because I wanted to talk a little bit further with some people. And I did have meaningful conversations, but I kind of chose to sit back and kind of see what was happening and kind of almost jump in if I felt like, one person was staying too much with their bestie and like kind of spacing that out. But I noticed that someone who is in our Russellville office made a comment that, talking about one of our Memphis office employees, like, that is not at all what I expected of that person. I only have heard their voice and thought that, they were almost rude because this particular employee has a northern accent. And when they talk, it's kind of has some pauses in it. And they're like, now that I meet this person, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's just a sweetheart. And that's just her mannerism. That's how she talks. She's not being snippy, but I'm so used to people I know who talk, and with pauses between them, they're being rude and kind of like, yeah, what you do? So
I wish y'all could have seen Katie's hand motions.
Like Katie motion, yeah. But it's like, that's a particular example of how technology is wonderful, even with Zoom and phone and emails and all stuff like that. Just meeting a person face to face, you really kind of see who they truly are. And so now I feel like the dynamic between those two employees is going to be different, because that one Russellville person is not going to go in thinking that employee is being snippy or angry. Instead, they're going to be like, oh, no, that's them. That's how they present themselves. That's how they speak. They're not being ugly to me.
Yeah. I like how we kind of had different objectives going in. I like your fly on the wall approach. That would have been kind of fun. I barely talked to the two of you and Nicole the whole time. I was like, I'm going to go hang out with the people that I don't know. So I threw the football with a dude from Arkansas for a while. I had lunch with the mother and daughter from Arkansas. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was really great.
So I don't hate y'all. I wasn't trying to avoid y'all, but I'm like, I hang out with y'all every day.
Yeah, no, and that's what it was supposed to be. And we did a show and tell, which before we decided to go away to get away from either Collierville and Russellville, so we were kind of meeting all on neutral ground. I had said, why don't we just do like a show and tell thing? And it's kind of like, what? Like little elementary school thing? But it was for everybody to get to know each team member outside of Cam, the branding guy, Court, the jack of all trades, whether he's got his legal hat on, his financial hat on, whatever hat he's got on. And it was really, really good. I felt like that was a really cool way to hear people's story, to kind of see what's important to them. And I think that made us all closer because some of them were very vulnerable and a lot of emotions came out. Others were just kind of some insights on their passion projects. And, Court talked about his kids and had these great props to explain it. And Cam talked about his disc golf love.
Yeah. It turned out to be more emotional than I thought it would be. And that's not a bad thing.
I didn't expect it to be emotional either.
Yeah, because let's talk about this. The point of this retreat, and I think you mentioned this at the top of the show, was to show that we are not just workers and that's it. Yeah. We're like real people outside of the office. And this was to kind of expose that, like, hey, let's get to know people. And the show and tell turned out to be emotional for some people.
It did.
Like somebody who maybe lost a family member or somebody who's crocheting a piece in honor of her grandmother or mother. And it was super cool. And then here I am. I pull out a round piece of plastic. I like to throw discs.
No, and that's, we had somebody who pulled out their truck keys and I was like, where is this going to go? But it was really cool because then they explained what this truck key gets them to and from and talked about their passion and what their day-to-day life is like outside of the office.
Hell yeah, brother.
I think it was really impactful. But here's the thing. It's like with every good thing, we have to keep it going.
Oh, yeah. It's not one and done.
You've got to still keep nurturing it and making sure you're checking in and taking it, which is why we're doing the unreasonable hospitality sessions. We listened to everybody and asked them what ideas do they have, what changes do they have. And now we're not going to be able to do everything. That's the reality. And as an employer, you don't want to do everything because then that kind of creates another culture of expectations that if an employee asks for something, they get it immediately.
Yeah, just like how you refer to financial plans as living and breathing. And I know this sounds cheesy, but a culture is living and breathing. You can't just do a retreat, just like one injection and say, it's good forever. Yeah. You have to keep nurturing that.
Yeah. And Cam created this great t-shirt. And so I envision now somebody maybe wearing it to the gym or out to the grocery store. And it may open up a conversation for somebody to be like, retreat. And it's like, oh yeah, my company, we did a staff retreat at the lake and, it was great, which then that turns into other people are finding out about the internal culture. And so it could turn into clients. It could turn into future employees. Like your team that you have a part of your business is your branding. They're the ones that are going to continue to sell who you are because it's one of those we see it in politics all the time. I'm great, I'm fabulous, I'm wonderful, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But what do your actions show? Are you just saying it or are your actions actually supplementing and proving what you're saying? And so your team is the example. If you say we have a great culture, we take care of our clients, we take care of our people, we are truly a family from our clients to our employees. And if people are seeing that, and if the team members are proudly wearing their shirt too, I think that's another thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's been a lot of connections made, but again, it was step one. And so, culture is so, so important. And that is just, I'm going to go ahead and bullseye this because we've probably kind of already started bullseyeing it. Do an evaluation of your culture at the bare minimum one time a year. Just kind of evaluate, get a pulse on how everybody's doing from the top all the way down to the bottom. And you think about, we didn't even talk about Undercover Boss.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that show?
I remember that show.
Yeah.
And that's where like the CEOs, the big guys would go and really get a feel on how are the lowest of the low, how are they working? How are they doing? How do they feel about the company? Because sometimes, right now we're a very small company in perspective. But if you work for a company that has thousands and thousands of employees, it's going to be hard for you to really be able to know what Sally in, building 10 is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where you've got to almost not have spies, but you've got to have people implanted in different places to kind of tell you, how are these different groups? How is the communications group doing? How is the marketing team doing? How is the accounting team doing?
Bullseye.
So yeah, I mean, my bullseye, sorry, I'm on my tangent. We started off with talking about some kind of crazy different office cultures with TV shows. Every culture is unique. And every culture changes and evolves with each person who comes in and each person who comes out. And also with times, as we saw, like Don Draper, that culture was very much to the times. And so you have to constantly be evolving this culture with keeping up with the times, keeping up with who are the players.
But not keeping up with the Jones.
No, you don't need to keep up with the Joneses. Small companies do not need to try and be like the level of a large company. Like I made a joke that, you remember when it was such a big deal when like Google and stuff had their huge campus and like they had nap rooms and they had like
Slides.
Creative think tank rooms and stuff like that. Well, a small company that has 25 employees, like we can't have nap rooms and slides and like
Challenge accepted.
This studio looks like a pretty good nap place.
y'all know what I'm saying.
I know,
Though.
yeah,
You've got to keep it in perspective of what your company is. And I'm going to throw this one out there. Keeping up with the culture, keeping up with, what everybody's doing does not mean money necessarily. Yes, we chose to make t-shirts, to go on a retreat, to take people. So yes, there was an expense with that. And, we roped in, as I said, like my mom got roped into this and she's not an official employee, but, she was in the kitchen making sure everyone had meals. And so there was her time and effort as well. But employees do not have to spend a lot of money or spend any money to take care of the culture. It can all be spent on just having those conversations, showing that you care and are making some adjustments. So I just wanted to throw that one out there. It's not all necessarily you have to throw money at the problem.
Yeah. Before we wrap, how would you guys define culture? Just like in a really quick way. Do you have a definition? Mine would just be, the key word is shared. It's like shared objectives, shared characteristics. Like that's what makes a culture is you all share the same or similar ideals. That's kind of how you get on the same page to me. It's not individual siloed stuff because that almost makes a bad culture. You need to communicate.
I mean, it's the trendy word. Like it's the overall vibe.
The vibe, yeah.
It's the overall
it's like the intangibles
feeling.
almost.
Yeah. It's what is the energy when you walk into an office?
Yeah, all of those things. Y'all all said it right. What is it? I just think of it as the overall experience. How does this place make you feel? How is it trying to make you feel? Is it succeeding? What are we trying to accomplish? Just overall, what is my experience when I walk through the door every day?
I want to make sure we say that if you come to our offices, we try and make it almost like a home environment. Like we've got fun pictures up on the wall. We do not try and make it very stuffy here because we want it to be, if they're coming in as a client, things like that, it feels more homey.
Yeah. Homey.
There's the closing bell. Ladies and gentlemen, you have made it to the end of yet another episode of the BullCast podcast. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, please feel free to go to your favorite subscription service and sign up to have our podcast beamed directly to your device every single Thursday at noon. If you'd like to find out more about Cortland, Cameron, Katie, or Nicole, please feel free to go to our website. That website is bullcastpodcast.com. We've got our bios up there, and hey, we also have a place where you can drop a comment, suggest a topic you'd like to hear us talk about, or just, leave us some news. We got pictures on the website, but if you like pictures, we've got a place where you can see even more pictures. That place is Instagram, and our handle is @BullCastPodcast. We also have a handle on X. That handle is @BullCastPodcast as well. Finally, we have a page on the Facebooks. That page is BullCast the Podcast. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, as if I don't say it enough, we do work at a place called Pickler Wealth Advisors. And if you'd like to find out more about what we do, more about what we could do for you, find out about our amazing team, and find out about our boss, David Pickler, then please feel free to go to that website. That website is picklerwealthadvisors.com.
That's advisors with an O.
Not an E.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've given you everything to go forward and completely change your company culture. So for now, I'm Court.
I'm Katie.
I'm Cam.
And we're done.